Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast where a behavioral scientist examines what it's like to live a humorous life. Glimpse into the lives of the funniest people in entertainment, business, and science as your host, Dr. Peter McGraw, explores their habits, motivations, and secrets to success. Get ready to fire up your brain and your funny bone. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast that looks at the lives of funny people. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Jonathon Giles. Jonathon is a writer and stand-up comedian. He's performed at clubs all over the United States. He's an alum of the NBC's Late Night Writers Program and part of the Second City NBC Universal Breakout Festival. Welcome, Jonathon.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So if you weren't a writer or comedian?
Oh, if I wasn't one?
If you were not,
okay.
You was not, were not, are not.
Yeah.
What would you be doing with your life?
Oh, man. I'd probably be like a youth pastor or something. I don't know. Working overseas, doing something.
Saving souls?
I don't know about saving souls, but just helping people realize that there's more to life than their everyday thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do some comedy about religion.
Yeah, I do.
Actually, one of my favorite bits that you have is about, like, what was it, like, kind of making rap songs,
it's
like
316 Mafia Joke.
Yes,
that joke is my favorite joke to do. Yeah.
What are the beats of the joke?
So the beats of the joke is I did grow up in a Christian home, and I was not allowed to listen to rap music growing up. So me and my friends decided we were going to start our own Christian rap group, and we named it 316 Mafia. Which the idea, I think, from an audience perspective, they love the idea of Christian rap anyways. It's just ironic. Mm-hmm. And then the name of the group being 316 Mafia is just fun on top of that. And so, and then the joke goes on to say that we essentially parody regular we parody regular rap songs, but just replace all the bad things about rap songs.
Remove the misogyny.
Yeah, with things from the Bible, but the Bible is pretty misogynistic and violent within itself. So it's, once again, it's a fun joke to do. I really like it.
You know what's cool about that joke is, well, I mean, obviously it's a funny joke, and you do some rapping.
Yeah, I've actually, and people kind of question me on this all the time. Like, it's kind of true. Like, I won't say that the joke within itself is 100% true, but there is truth to it. So me and my friends Shane and Russell in high school, we had an R&B group. Okay. And so we would parody R&B songs. Okay. And, for the sake of the joke, it's funnier that it's rap.
Yes.
And I'm giving it all away right now. I don't care. So, and there are some songs that I pulled from what we used to do, kind of. Uh-huh. And I've written some new ones with like current rap.
Right.
Because I had a couple shows where people would like, that's not true. And so it was nice to have something in my back pocket, which I think from a performance standpoint, the audience loves the fact that you're ready with that.
Yeah.
And they appreciate the sort of art that goes into it, as well as it being a funny thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I read this story about some CEO who was preparing, I think it was like a shareholders call or something like that. And the thing was that he prepped the answer to like 50 questions, knowing that maybe only 3 of those questions get asked. Yeah. And it's like, I think this happens in your world too.
Sure.
Is you have all these contingencies, right? If X happens, I can do this.
Yep.
If Y happens, I can do that.
Yep.
And I think audiences, they can appreciate it, but they don't appreciate it even enough to know like how much goes on behind the scenes to create something.
Sure. Yeah. Because we're always in our heads, always talking and having personal conversations with ourselves. So I just did the Meltdown, not the Meltdown, that's the show, the Nerd Melt, which was the last show at the Nerdist Theater.
Yeah,
they're
closing it.
Yeah, the comic book store's closing, so the theater's closing.
We're in LA, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Hey, welcome to LA. So the show that I was doing, they wanted to do a bit at the end of the show.
Okay.
And so the host or the producer of the show said, hey, do you mind if I heckle you towards the end of your set?
Okay.
Which for me, I think that's part of the practice too, that you're just talking about, us always coming up with things or lines that we would say in certain instances. Part of that is if you see a good comedian who can come back to a heckle just really quick, chances are he's heard that heckle a bunch of times before and he's finally perfected the right comeback. So, anyways, so we went over, I kind of gave him the idea of some of the jokes I thought I was going to do. And I was like, have fun. I probably will have something ready to go. Okay. And then his heckle was not what we talked about.
Okay. What did he say?
So, I was doing a bunch of sort of story-based jokes. And so at the end, and I was killing. And I don't normally say I kill. I had a great set. And
it's a great room too.
It's a great room. Everyone's on board. It was so much fun.
Yeah. And
the things that he was supposed to come in, the parts where I knew like I got the light and I was expecting him to come in, he didn't come in. He's like, at the end, he was like, you're crushing. I didn't want to interrupt it. Yeah. So at the end, he's like, hey, is all that true? He gave me one of those all that true. Uh-huh. And I was like, yeah, man. And then I was like, but what if it wasn't true? What do you want your laughs back?
That's fun.
Which is like, just kind of came up with that.
And now you have it.
Yeah. Now I have that forever. Yeah. It was good. Yeah.
That's great. I want to revisit that, your 316 Mafia joke.
Okay.
So what I think is great about that joke is that it moves, it's artistic. Mm-hmm. That is that, art makes you think about the world, like it's perspective bending. Mm-hmm. And the idea that this connection, right? So at first blush, it's just a regular fun joke. I remove the bad things and it's funny, it's all that kind of stuff. But then pointing out the flip, that all those things are in the Bible and we're not taking them out of there. Yeah. That's what makes that joke artistic, I think.
The thing that I think I find most interesting, because I did grow up in a conservative religious home in the South, mm-hmm. I can do that joke in front of a conservative group, and I can do that in front of a very liberal group, and both groups appreciate the joke. And there's no I haven't had anyone don't make fun of Jesus. I did say a line. I'll send. This is not good for your listeners. I'll send you the clip. I said a line I've never said on stage last night, and I was like, "Ooh, it got such a great response." I have to figure out if I can keep it. But
if you can use it for multiple
audiences, yeah. But I'll send you the clip once I get it. It was a good.
If you a good one. If you decide that I can post it, I'll post it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna make a note. This has come up before, I think, in the podcast about the sort of performance aspects of stand-up. Mm-hmm. And your youth pastor quip made me think about it. Like, how are you? You're a relatively new comic.
Yeah.
How long?
About I think I hit just 4 years this past year. Yeah. So I'm in my beginning of my 5th year.
Yeah. That's so. I mean,
that's new. It's very new. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
I think about Chris Rock. Mm-hmm. I think his dad was a pastor, mm-hmm. and he stole a lot mm-hmm. from that. The pacing the stage and the repeating things and the building tension and creating importance, and so on. Where are you at with your stage presence at this point? How would you describe that? Yeah,
I think it's something I think about all the time. So even with the 316 Mafia joke, there is a lot more performance-y type things I do in that. Like I sing the rap song.
Mm-hmm. What song is it?
It's a Biggie Smalls line, which is
oh yes.
Oh man, I can't remember what the actual line is. I've done this joke so much.
Baby,
yeah. He was like, because tonight is a night. Oh man, see, I'm gonna ruin it. My joke is tonight is a night that Mary had the baby. Yeah, Biggie Small is like, I see a lot of women in here could be my babe, who could have my baby. Yeah. Anyways, once again, I think from an artistic point, you don't hear a lot of comics sing.
No.
And I don't look like a comic who would sing, so I think it is another sudden change in that specific joke. But it's good to answer your question. I try to find jarring moments like that, which I think is something that pastors do, in the sense of like whether it's a ha, which is sort of a
that's
shocking
the James Brown kind of
yeah, for sure
model.
Yeah, I don't pace that much. I don't do a lot of act outs. I don't have an act out body. I think actually, I was talking to a comic friend the other night, and she was saying that she was trying to lose some weight. For that very reason, because she is active on stage, and you kind of need a slimmer body. It shows better. It's like Dave Chappelle when he first started was very slim, lanky, and Chris Rock very lanky. So those movements were more accentuated. And once Dave Chappelle got buff, he just didn't feel the same on stage. Now you're looking at this sort of built, strong guy that he just didn't move around as much as he would have.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I've never thought about it in terms of accentuating. You know, Steve Martin, when he was like at the top of his game, he was doing arenas. And he started wearing a white suit in order to have that sort of pop, because you know it's a big arena. Like you're looking at this little stick figure. You know, if you're in the 300 level.
I'm starting to think about that a little bit. Like you said, you know, just kind of the first 4 years I've been doing is like just try to be funny, and now it's like, okay, how can I add the other things like from a performance standpoint? I was watching someone's special last night, and I was like, man, all these jokes are great. I want to hear someone else tell them, because the person who was telling the jokes was very just like flat, and you know that's his style, you know, whatnot. But I was like, man, if it just needs like an extra like voice thing there or some movement, that would really make the jokes and the stories come to life. So I think about that all the time when I'm trying to write new stuff.
I mean, you have a look on stage. You have your ball cap with the brim at 45, right?
Got a cool brim.
So you've been wearing that hat ever since I met you, which was 3 years ago.
And the reason I started wearing the hat was so I started doing stand-up in Chicago. There's another comic, a good friend of mine, Dave Ellum, who also has a similar look as me. We're kind of the same shape. Wears glasses, a little bit of facial hair.
Black guy.
Yeah, that's important. And what if he wasn't? What if he was like from Malaysia? So we were both doing a show together, and there was a girl, and it was like a bar show, dive room back in the back of the bar. And there was a girl in front who was drawing really bad caricature, of all the comics. And so after the show, I went up to her and I said, hey, I want to see my caricature. And she moved her hand and pointed to it. And I was like, no, that's Dave Ellum. Where's mine? And she had covered something she had written. She moved her hand and it said, another mild-mannered looking black guy.
Is that right?
That's exactly what she wrote. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I need something. And Dave and people would come up to me and get ready to give me a hug and realize I wasn't Dave. And it would happen a lot. So I was like, I need something very specific. I used to, because I'm from Georgia, I used to only wear an Atlanta hat.
Okay.
But after I, got in the scene in Chicago, people knew who I was. I was like, I switch it up.
Yeah.
I can wear whatever hat I want to now.
How many of these hats do you have?
Oh man, I love hats. I've always loved hats. I probably have not as many as I used to. I think 12 hats. Okay. Yeah. I have a friend who works for New Era. I don't know why I just said that. Giving New Era a plug. He gives me hats every once in a while. So yeah.
Do you this is a total digression. Do you care for your hats?
Not as much as a person who would say they are a collector.
Okay.
Yeah. I like them. I don't necessarily.
Are they in a pile somewhere?
They're kind of just on top of my dresser. Okay. Yeah. I know people who collect things like that, and I'm not that person.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, this is so I like having guests who I know them and I know their work, but then I do this a lot. So you have this joke about sometimes we do look alike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, did that come out of the Dave Ellum thing?
No, that came out of a show, a charity at a Catholic school I did. And some of the students came up to me afterwards and said, "You look like our friend Terrence."
Yes.
And
this is part of your joke.
It is, yeah. It actually is part of the joke. So yeah, it came out of a true thing. They're like, because I remember during the show, they were sitting in front, they were laughing at everything.
Okay.
Like, I'm like, man, these kids really love these jokes. And then afterwards, they came up to me and they were like, "You look like our friend Terrence." And, as a black guy, I'm kind of like, whatever.
Yeah.
Sure, I do. And I was like, "Prove it." And they showed it to me. And no, I looked exactly like that guy. And I'm like, yeah, sometimes we do look like each other, like each other. So, I also am a little different. I don't want to say I'm too different, but I think a lot of things that we try to make a big deal racially, in some cases aren't as big as a deal as we try to make them.
Okay.
For example, I don't know, did you read the article or hear any of the people Twitter talking about Bruno Mars and appropriation and whatnot?
This sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, it was in the news.
Okay.
Someone wrote a thing.
It's hard to keep up with all this outrage.
For sure. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think a lot of time feels like it's fake outrage.
Yeah.
Someone wrote a thing about Bruno Mars and appropriation. And I'm like, is it really? Was it worth the time for you to write that article? Now I got to read it. Now I got to listen to my friends' opinions on this. It's not that big a deal. Bruno Mars is a great performer.
What did he steal?
They said he stole black culture. And I'm like, no, there's probably art artists who do that, but I think a lot of my humor comes from the fact that we really try to make things bigger than they really are.
So when are you doing a bit about white dreadlocks?
I don't have a bit about white dreadlocks. I think those guys, if you're white and you have dreadlocks, it's pretty brave, actually. Like, good for you. Yeah.
So, I don't know. So, I don't know if you do this, like if you do this on purpose.
Okay.
But one thing that I notice is that you flip things around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, for instance, a guy with white dreadlocks is brave.
Yeah.
Right? He's to be elevated, not diminished.
Not to be made fun of.
You have a joke about feeling bad for white
people,
white men.
You guys have it hard, man.
Right? Like so. Like, do you cultivate this? Like, is this just natural? Like, how do you do this?
I think it is a sort of natural thing. And
you're a nice guy.
I think it's because just once again how I was raised. So I grew up because of my Christian upbringing. This on the holiest days of. Can I say this is Easter?
It is Easter. Yes.
Yeah, today's Easter.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry to make you work on Easter.
No worries. Yeah, this is the Lord's work we're really doing right now. So I grew up in this Christian home because of my parents' belief. They sent me and my brother to a Christian private school.
Okay.
So most of the kids in that school were white. But what I also found was I was just a weird kid anyway. So like when I wasn't in school around white people, I was at church around black people. I didn't fit in either one of those.
You are like a modern day Chris Rock.
I've read that, and I think I found that very interesting because I think he went to an all white school, right?
Yes, he went to a poor white school.
Yeah,
and then he was too
much
of a
rich white school.
I guess
they were rich, not me.
I don't know what's better. Probably rich white.
Yeah,
according to Chris Rock, rich white.
I would just be depressed if I went to a poor white school. I mean, what are you guys doing?
But he never fit in his neighborhood. Like he was too much of a nerd.
Yeah,
in his neighborhood.
Yeah, that was sort of the same for me. Yeah.
Dude, you have great. You can just
do the Chris Rock thing.
Just do the Chris Rock thing, and you'll be fine.
Get famous, make some movies with Woody Allen, cheat on my wife. I'll be set. Get a Netflix special. Exactly. That's the blueprint.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, I don't even remember what we're talking about. No, where did that come from? So I think to some degree,
Christian household.
Yeah, to some degree, I'm always challenging how people the sort of social norms.
Okay.
Just because I feel like I'm the outsider on all of it. Also, a lot of stand-up comics are all saying the same thing.
It's predictable.
It's fun to not do. You're talking about white guys with dreadlocks. Sure, it's easy to make fun of them.
Yes.
But it's okay. It's okay if they have dreadlocks. If they want to do that, they're not taking anything from me, I don't think, right? So someone said sort of the same thing you just said to me a couple weeks ago, actually. They said, it's fun to watch me paint myself in a corner and try to find my way back out of it. And I think unintentionally, it's sort of like the idea that it's tough to be white. A lot of people aren't really on board with that premise anyways, but sort of what's the game and the funness of trying to prove the point that I just made that I really don't necessarily believe in myself. But so yeah, I kind of talked around your question, but
yeah, well, okay. So, but let's talk more deeply about it, because I'm really fascinated by this idea. So I think, first of all, you are absolutely correct that when everybody is saying sort of the same thing in the same kind of way, it's not hack comedy, but it's just predictable. It's just not very... There's
not too many new premises out there. It's hard to find a new thing that no one else is talking about, especially like even with Twitter. Like laymen are... There's funny people out there who will never be on stage, but they're killing it on Twitter.
You know what I like to do sometimes is... if I come up with sort of if something happens and I come up with something that's funny, instead of tweeting it, I search for it.
Okay.
And I often find
someone else,
5 other people have already said it.
Yeah.
You know, and not all of them are comics. Like some of them are just regular
people. Yeah.
So the notion of like, that's the classic, like, a lot of jokes aren't stolen; they're just invented independently.
Correct. Yeah.
They're just predictable enough that would have happened. So that's like a nice like next level thing, which is you go, okay, well, what can I do to prove the opposite? You know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure it ends up not working a lot.
No, you're right. You're right.
But when it does, it's probably satisfying. Because now the audience they're laughing and they're getting a different look.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's sort of, you know, again, like it's that, are you beating someone up or are you elevating them? And if you can elevate them and make the audience laugh, that's, I think, an interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I've done that, it's tough to be white thing. And I've seen sort of like the older white guy or whatever lean in and kind of nod and like kind of have that sense of finally someone gets me. Like, and I sense that from people, I love it. Cause then that gives me some freedom to kind of interact with that guy and the audience. There's, you know, there may be some tension, but you can release the tension and see this guy knows what I'm talking about. And the audience gets to have fun with that joke as well. Here's an example of a joke that didn't work. So with the Me Too movement, and then
I see why it didn't work.
Yeah, honestly, like, and I kind of like bringing up topics that automatically people are kind of like, "Where's this going?"
Yes,
like, right. I think you got to prove you're funny, but I think people kind of like, "Oh, what's he gonna do with this?" Yeah. So I had written a joke that I was saying that, of course, we all agree that men shouldn't just be pulling out their penis. Of course, we all agree that.
Yes.
But if we're being honest, that is how some of our grandparents met our grandmother. Okay. That's some people's love story. Like some of us are here because, you know.
I see what you're trying to do with that joke.
Exactly. And I also, that doesn't work all the time. And so there's
you can't make that. You're trying to make that violation benign.
Yeah. It's a tough thing because, like, of course, a lot of people are thinking rape, and I don't want it to be that. Yeah. And you know, it's a long plank. This is a new phrase someone gave me. Sometimes some jokes is a long plank to get to the joke. So, but I have sensed people's interest when I say, but if we're being honest,
and people kind of perk up.
Like, what is he going to say that I haven't heard yet? So yeah, it doesn't always work.
Yeah, I can see that. You know what? Well, the good thing about that premise is that it creates tension, and you know, obviously, comedy plays on tension.
Yep.
So, I'm going to go back to you were taught your own personal Chris Rock story.
Okay.
So you actually credit your comedic influence to realizing that you were the most popular black kid in an all-white school.
I was killing it, man.
So tell me about
everyone's best black friend.
Tell me about that.
So I transferred to this school, Mount Vernon, in 6th grade.
This is in Georgia.
In Georgia, yeah. And I remember on the first day, this kid named Kevin Piggy. We were at PE, had shorts on. I had just had like a scab on my knee.
Okay.
And Kevin Piggy came up to me and looked at my scab. And Kevin Piggy was white, obviously, and asked me if I also had black blood. And so I think like 12 years old, I realized like, oh, some of these people have never been around a black person before.
Okay.
And I think I kind of made a conscious decision then. Like,
as a 12-year-old.
As a 12-year-old, I can be not necessarily, I didn't feel like I was like carrying a torch for black people or anything. I was like, I could either choose to be like, you don't understand me, or I can just be like, we have a lot in common. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of sort of stories like that, I think, that carry a theme through my life, which I've been consciously thinking about and trying to write about that some too. But yeah, there was some, I remember in middle school and high school, like crying and telling my parents I didn't want to go to the school anymore. I played football, and I remember, getting called the N-word by my own teammates.
Okay.
I remember one guy named Troy, I forget his last name, came off the field one time and told me, he's like, hey, we don't have anywhere to sit around here, so we need you to get on all fours so some of the players have a place to sit. Like, I remember that, like, in 9th grade. And then in 10th grade, when I started killing it, 10th and 11th grade, I was like player of the year, county player of the year. Some of those same guys were coming back and watching games. They're like, man, you're great.
Okay.
Oh my God, you're going to go to Georgia, University of Georgia. You're going to play like you. And I'm sitting there and like, okay, I see how, like, it's once again, I'm like this, I feel like a fish outside of the fishbowl. I'm like, oh, I see how this works.
Okay.
Everybody wants a piece of you when you're doing well, but when you're not necessarily at top, you're just sort of this thing that they can make fun of, or I don't even think a lot of those people were racist. I just think that's just the culture that they grew up in. Mm-hmm. One of my best friends today, I was in his wedding, but in college he asked me to be in his wedding, but I remember him starting to cry because I didn't know this, his family was part of the KKK.
Okay.
And when I came to that school and started playing football, he was like, he was raised not to like black people.
Okay.
And then over the course of our lives, I just learned to love you as a brother. Yeah, and he's like, there was no real conversation. There was no remember the Titans moment where we both had to like run up hills forever. Right. It was just life. And
it's exposure.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting to think about that. And it's also interesting to think about it the other way too. Like how I interact with other cultures and other groups, and try to just be me and not necessarily assimilate to whoever I'm hanging around with. Yeah, just be the truest form of myself as possible.
Tiring? Is it tiring?
Can be. Yeah, it can be. I think now today I don't have to do it as much.
Okay.
But being kind of growing up in college, I mean, the college I kind of went to was a liberal arts. I remember the first day in college, this young lady, Mary, came up to me. Her first question, like, she was nice, and she was like, "Oh, are you new? Yep. Mm-hmm. Are you here to play basketball?" Nope, sure I'm not. The president of that college at the time offered me a scholarship to try out for the baseball team. Okay. And I had no real interest in that. Okay. So it can be tiring because there are times where you want to snap. I think there's moments where you have to sort of filter, is this person just ignorant? Never really grew up around people outside of their bubble, or is this person just a jackass? Yeah. And then to determine, like, how do you want to interact with that person? Right. I'm actually working on a project. I think it might end up being a feature film, kind of talking about all that.
About this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and your family have an influence on this? Like,
yeah.
Did you said you were crying to your parents? Like, what did those conversations go like?
I think I can't really remember. I remember one instance. I think it was after that football incident where I got asked to get on all fours.
That's unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
I played football in high school. Not well. I just can't imagine.
Looking back at it, you're like, how did I not flip out?
Well, so I was one of only a few white kids on an all-black team.
Yeah.
And I just can't even, right? Like,
yeah.
Right?
I think there was probably for them some.
And I was bad, so if you were going to ask someone to get on all fours and have someone sit,
it would have been you. And you're tall.
Except I was too skinny.
You're tall. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Like the kicker comes up to you. Oh, my legs, I need a rest. My parents, my mom, I love her. She won't ever listen to this. My mom's very passive, and I get that from my mom. I can be passive, and that's where I think the humor comes from. I won't come back at you right away, but I'll think of a funny thought.
Okay, yeah.
I remember that specific, though, my dad was driving me home from that game is when I broke down and cried. Honestly, I can't remember what the outcome. I don't remember if my dad was like, do you want to go to a different school? I don't remember if he was like, this is the world that we live in.
Get used to it.
Yeah. I don't remember much, but my dad told me I was probably like 4 or 5. We had a neighbor that lived up the street from us. So when I say I'm from Atlanta, I grew up in Henry County, which at the time was pretty country.
Okay.
And so our neighbor lived up the street. I went up there to play with the other kid who was up there. My dad tells me the story that the neighbor brought me back, the adult, brought me back home and said that his son could come play at our house, but I wasn't allowed to play at his house.
Okay.
And after that conversation between adults, I don't know how it went, but my dad, I guess, tried to have like a teaching moment or with me and asked me if I knew why that was. And as a child, I was just like, probably because I'm black, and just shrugged it off.
Really?
And just kept it moving. And so I don't know really where that personality developed at such a young age, but it's kind of, how things go. Just the sort of shrug it off and let's.
Yeah. Well,
and it translates outside of race too. I think it translates for me and just life when things go wrong, just like, just got to keep it moving. Yeah.
It's a little bit Buddhist of you, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just a observation. Because I did not have this as a kid. I don't think. I think some families have like a philosophy, and they're really good at. And I think the more sophisticated parents are more likely to actually have a philosophy about the world and to have those teachable moments, and so on. That's why I asked that question. Yeah,
I think my family, right, wrong, or indifferent, they were like kind of go along to get along.
Okay,
not necessarily, Uncle Tom, if that wasn't the mentality, but it was just like, do your work, be a good person. Nothing else really matters. Okay. Yeah, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. Yeah.
So that stuff, clearly, I think influences your stand-up. This melding of your perspective, your personality, your experience, and so on. But you're doing a lot of writing nowadays, which makes me happy to hear.
Yeah.
So how's that going? What's that like?
You
did I think last time I saw you were doing a sketch class or you were doing something.
Yeah, so I moved out here to LA about a year ago. Mainly because I just felt like I sort of hit my ceiling in Chicago. I wasn't going to grow anymore as a performer. And got out here. We went to the UCB show.
Yes.
And I was like, improv. Yeah, let's do some. Let's just try new things. I went through the improv program at UCB.
You did 101?
I graduated. Yeah.
301, 401?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm jealous.
Yeah. And then.
What kind of grades did you get?
I think I got a B.
I have this theory that everybody gets B's, except unless you're really bad.
Yeah, I think that
one person in class gets an A.
Yeah, everybody else. Yeah, I definitely didn't feel like I was the top of my class, but I remember my teacher, Will, after our last final show, we go out and have some drinks at Birds, the bar right next to Franklin. Yeah. And Will was like, so we'll see you in advanced study. And I remember thinking like, really? And then at the time I was like, also, they probably pay him to say that to everybody. But that's also I think the self-deprecating comedian in me is like, I'm not good enough.
Yeah. Also, I think the other thing about it is that when you're doing improv and you're a critical person,
mm-hmm.
you know how you could be doing it better.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and so you have all this access to stuff that's happening in your head, and access to what you're doing on the stage. So it always feels incomplete.
You're like, this scene sucks. I could be making it better, but they told us not to do that.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
So you did improv.
So I did improv, and then while in the middle of improv, I met a really good friend, Aisha Alpha, is a Canadian comedian out of Canada, and we decided to start writing sketch together. And I found that improv was leading me and helping me figure out sketch a lot quicker, the games and sketches.
Yeah, that's right.
And kind of fell in love with sketch in terms of as a writing format. I did take a class at Nerdist School. Which has changed its name to the Ruby LA. But and now I'm on a sketch team. Yeah.
So this for listeners, they may not be aware of this, but there's this methodology, I guess, right? So obviously, you got improv, which is completely unrehearsed and spontaneous, and then you have sketch, which is written.
Yep.
And is there ever an improvisational element to executing a sketch?
I think so. I think there's probably times, and you have lines, but I think there's times in the moment whether you forget a line and you have to sort of improv and get it back on track on stage. Also, there's a fun element to writing where you and I may be writing a sketch together, but we just improv sort of the flow of it.
Yes.
And we're like, that's funny. And then you might say something. And then by the time we've kind of audibly written it, and then go back to actually putting the beats on paper.
Yeah. So there's two things about this. So one is I've heard about people seeding sketch ideas from improv performances.
Yep.
Right. So UCB in 201 teaches you game.
Yep.
Which is the funny thing, right? And how to create and replicate the funny thing.
Yep.
And the idea is that a good game can become the basis for a good sketch.
Sure.
That's one thing that I think happens a lot.
Yep.
And so people sketch writers will do improv, and for that reason. Yep. The other one I think is interesting is so let's talk about this partner writing process that you do. So you guys are kind of going back and forth, like we're chatting right now, kind of thing. Where are you? What are you doing? How long do you do this? Do you have computers in front of you? Yeah. Are you taking notes? Like, what is this?
Yeah, it varies. I think a lot of times we're face to face. I'm pitching an idea. I'm like, I kind of want to write this thing about this, and this is what I'm thinking. And one thing I really love about Aisha is that not only does she give me good notes, but she's female. So
and she's Canadian.
So she also has a broad worldview beyond my own. And so she can kind of be like, yeah, I wouldn't say that, or actually as a woman in your scene, this is a decision that I would actually truly make.
I see.
Yeah. So we're able to do that a lot. And sometimes,
and where are you doing this? Are you
her apartment, my apartment, coffee shop?
Got it. Okay.
And then sometimes I'll write a thing on my own and I'll send it to her and I'll be like, hey, what do you think about this? And it's fun to be in a Google Doc and see someone changing things and loving it. I remember one time she changed something I wrote and I did the jump out of my seat, laugh, sort of run around the room thing, because the perspective I think she found in that was, I hadn't even thought about it. It was great. So yeah.
I like I'm for as an academic you do a lot of joint work. Most papers have two or more co-authors on them. There's some research at least correlational research that shows that papers that have more co-authors are actually better cited. So there's some suggestive evidence that more minds are better.
Sure.
At least to a certain point. But I'm starting starting to work on a paper where I'm just writing it.
Okay.
And I decided to do that because it's like a new challenge. I can do it at my own pace. Like I'm not holding anyone up. I'm never anxious, waiting for someone to get something back.
Yeah.
But it is less. I would say it's creatively just as challenging, maybe more, but it's less fun.
Yeah, I think So I think there are different things that I'm working on that like my stand-up is me. And sometimes I'll run bits by friends. I love getting tags. I love giving tags to jokes. Like, I didn't think about that. But my stand-up, I have full control, really, of what's on stage. Being in more of a writer's room sort of situation is difficult. I think you just have to learn to be open. Like, don't be afraid of notes. Mm-hmm. You don't have to always take the note, but if it makes your sketch better, go for it. But yeah, I think you kind of have to think about what the space that you're in and when to work. I'm sort of like you, and what your process is. I prefer to write alone.
Okay.
I prefer to write a full sketch or whatnot and then to hand it off to someone because I want my point of view to be seen. I used to do a writer's room in Chicago, and this was mostly for stand-up. We would get together and bring bits and premises and thoughts to a group, and we had different levels of experience in the room. So sometimes people would be pitching you a dick joke when on something that wasn't even like, like kind of like maybe like a high premise. I want to talk about the election, and someone throws a dick joke in there. You're like, no, you're not listening. Mm-hmm. Or like if I wanted to do, I think at the time the Bill
that person had that joke ready for whatever you pitched.
Yeah,
right?
I think also because in that room, this is what I think helps is when you're writing with other people that people kind of know who you are.
Okay.
So if I would never not do a dick joke on stage, why pitch me a dick joke? Mm-hmm. Which I think is interesting that I think because I just did this sort of late night program.
And they're trying to improve you as a writer.
Yeah. And so like Jimmy Fallon, who is like the type of host who won't really go too hard into politics, mm-hmm. really. So why pitch them something that's going to attack Trump when it's not going to ever get on stage?
Yeah, right.
But I totally forgot what we were talking about.
Well, we were talking about you like to write something. You like to hand it over and get notes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So going back to that stand-up group, a lot of times I had premises. And I remember one premise was about Bill Cosby. So that was kind of like I was setting a joke up to say, I think I literally was starting the joke by saying Bill Cosby to build that tension.
Okay.
To automatically get people. And the joke at the time was, this is how I know it's true. I think because 53 women agreed. Women don't agree on anything.
I see.
Yeah. And then like the tag was like, I've seen The View. And so the joke within itself was funny. But I remember in that group, the moment I said Bill Cosby, and there's some females in the room who are like, nope, can't talk about it. And that's sort of that's a rough thing because as a comedian, and I think Chris Rock said this, like sometimes it's difficult people don't want to hear you say something offensive to get to your point.
Yeah, I see. I don't think that there are any topics that are off limits from comedy. I just think it just has everything to do with the execution. Mm-hmm. And actually, it's the topics that would at first blush seem most off limits mm-hmm. that you have it's the most difficult road, but once you can get there, or plank, as you like to say, but if you can get there, it can actually have this huge payoff.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So let's do a quick primer on writing a sketch. Okay. So this is on my to-do list for my forthcoming sabbaticals to take a sketch class. So like, is a sketch like a 3-act? How is it? What is the right. Like,
I mean, for me, I think first of all, like I really like to write real world situations and kind of break. So here's an example of a sketch. Right. I wrote a sketch when the Hawaiian missile came, crisis thing, the fake crisis in Hawaii. And so that set it up. There was someone got a text message alert. They said missile inbound, find cover. And then the sketch quickly turned into this husband and wife trying to find their charger, because all of a sudden not being able to charge your phone became the really dramatic thing. and then it continues to just get out of control.
So you have to charge your phone before the
missile hits. Yeah. And then, oh, wait a minute, fantasy football. I got to fix that real quick. And yeah, so technology is really sort of the monster. And then at the end, because I like writing like sort of these weird endings. And so like in the sketch, I actually did have the world blow up, but someone gave me a note. They said it would actually have been fun for them to not to have gotten in a fight and the missile never came. But anyways, missile comes, blows up, and then you see sort of this figure in this dystopian Mad Max kind of world who has gathered all the chargers and has like the power.
I see.
Yeah. So that's how I like to write. It's really fantasy meets the I think, the core of that sketch is just sort of out of that couple interact with each other. Yeah.
You know, there was I haven't read it, but there was an article in some men's magazine, GQ or Esquire or something like that, about those 20 minutes between the announcement and then the it's not going to hit kind of thing. And I immediately thought that should be a comedy film.
No, I agree.
I mean, I agree. I wouldn't be surprised if someone's working on it. Right, so it's like
it should be after this podcast. They will be.
Do we get 10%?
No, we don't. We get nothing.
But yeah, the idea that like, oh, you know, like there's what happens in the world, right? Because you could tell that story. I'm sure. I mean, I bet you the author in some way might be doing something very deep where people confessed or whatever. Or who knows what they did? Or you could turn it around and just make it comedic.
Yeah, I mean, I think the surface jokes that I saw when it first came out was about the governor not being able to unlock his Twitter account.
That's right.
And then there was jokes about the guy who accidentally hit the button, but I never saw anything about the people being impacted. And like you said, who confessed? Who told their wife that they cheated on? Who decided to make it like this? Let's have sex. This is it.
Yes.
And now, like 9 months later, they got this missile baby that they never really wanted.
Right. Yes,
yeah. That's our missile baby, you know.
A couple quick questions. Yes. Actually, we're gonna do some rapid fire ones. Something you've changed your mind about?
Comedically or just in life?
General, yeah.
Rapid fire. I think I've changed my about sort of I'm trying to figure out how to distill this for you. How we interact with our families who may have different viewpoints than us.
Okay.
I used to think that a lot of people was building things up, but I think in our current era of Trump, I'm starting to see some of that myself. And like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So not as far-fetched a phenomenon.
For sure.
I see.
Yeah.
How many unpopular opinions do you think you have?
All of them. I think they're all pretty unpopular. Most of them are unpopular.
Do you think you have a lot of unpopular opinions?
Yeah, but going both ways. I'll have a conversation with my sort of liberal friends, and I'm like, but if you look at it from the other person's viewpoint, and you know, my liberal friends are like, no, that's wrong, and the other side of it, if I'm talking to someone who's more conservative, I'm like,
well,
yeah, and so I'm always stuck in the middle.
Yeah. Well, that's like an unpopular opinion seems like a good premise for a joke for you.
Yeah.
What are you reading, watching, or listening to that is superb?
Reading, watching, listening to that's superb. I just finished season 3 of Angie Tribeca.
Okay.
I love it because it's just jokes. It's all jokes.
Okay.
The Gary Shandling documentary on HBO.
Oh, is that good?
It was great. I felt I think it's kind of cool. Speaking of feeling connected to comedians, I felt some similar connections to him early in his life and the way I view things. So I would recommend that.
No, I got to watch that.
I just read a book on John Mack, I think is the author. I think the title of it's called Monologue.
Okay.
He used to write for Jay Leno.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was good.
Yeah, these are good for me too.
And I'm really proud you asked that question because I read a book. I had a book ready to go.
Sometimes these things are hard because I don't prep my
Sure.
guests at all.
Yeah.
Including this, our final question, which I ask everyone. What's the secret to success everybody knows but can't seem to do?
A phrase that I am saying a lot to myself is just trust the process.
Okay.
There's no A to Z sort of thing. Just go with the flow, trust what you're doing, and you'll know when you get there what the next move is supposed to be.
Yeah, I think I've said this before on the pod. Scott Adams, the guy who created Dilbert, has a saying about don't have goals, have systems.
Okay.
Which I think is sort of a trust the process kind of approach, which is just don't give up, let it, give it time.
Which is super tough, I think, not only for comedians, but especially like millennials where things are kind of just handed to us. I think it's tough to be like, well, why haven't I got, like, I hear comedians complain about not getting a JFL audition all the time. They're like, why did this person get it? I deserve it. Well, you don't deserve anything. Just keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. If you're supposed to get it, you'll get it. If you're not supposed to get it, then you won't. Like, just trust the process.
Yeah. I think, it is interesting how that dissatisfaction is both a blessing and a curse. Like, right? Because, look, I think this is in general the case is that when you see successful people, you rarely ever see what they're doing behind the scenes. Like that CEO who preps 50 questions so he can nail 3.
Yeah. Jordan Peele worked on Get Out for 6-7 years before it gets put on screen. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And so, first of all, you get a false sense of how easy things are.
Yeah.
And then, I think it's just hard to have the patience necessary to work on something for 6 or 7 years without trusting that at the end of those 6 or 7 years, you're going to have something that you think is pretty good, that you're going to be happy with, regardless of what the market says.
Yeah. I think I don't know when he finished his first draft and got notes from whoever, I think it'd be easy to be like, well, this is crap and throw it away. With sketch, I do that a lot of times and I'm like, that didn't end the way I want it to. So it's sort of easy to, let's just move on to the next project. But even if you set it aside for a little while, like to be patient enough, like let's go back to it maybe when I have, more life experience or a different point of view. And you're like, that's how you make that work. Yeah. But I think a lot of people, especially stand-up comedy, it's easy for people to be like, they didn't laugh at my one joke that I wrote in my first year, so stand-up's not for me. Right. So there is something to be said about the people who can, just keep it going, bury their head, keep working. Those are the ones that kind of end up at top. So hopefully I know I'm still new in this in terms of years, so hopefully I'll have that stick-to-itiveness.
Yes.
Is that a word? Is that a real word?
It is. It is for me.
Okay.
Jonathon, this was fun.
Yeah, this is great.
Doing this.
Yeah. First of all, I appreciate you. You've been, for the listeners, Pete's been a constant support for me, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
I appreciate you.
I like helping. Cool. But only people who deserve it.
Not everyone. Yeah. Pete's phone number is.
Cool, man. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to visit petermcgraw.org for more information about our guest, show notes, and social media links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with others. Join Dr. Peter McGraw.